त्रिरत्न शरणम नमो अमिताभाय नमो भगवते अरते सम्यक सम्बुद्धाय टासी डेले फ्याफुल्ला साक्षाल्लो तारेमाम। आजको प्रश्न हामी अहिले पनि त्यही श्रृङ्खलामा लागिरहेछौँ।
Today as well, we are continuing the series of answering questions. I have been asked about many things that have been said about the Buddha or Buddha Dharma by various Buddhists and by various Hindu gurus, to clarify whether they are true or untrue, correct or incorrect. Many questions such as this one have been asked.
यो हिन्दूहरूमा चलेको अफवाह हो, यसको केही पनि ऐतिहासिकता छैन।
This is a popular hearsay among Hindus. It is not congruent with history at all. Adi Shankaracharya was from the 8th century. First of all, in reality, he started becoming popular in the Indian subcontinent, even among Hindus, only after Vachaspati Mishra wrote a commentary called Bhamati Tika on Shankaracharya's Brahma Sutra Bhashya, which is also known as Shariraka Bhashya, in the 10th century. It was only after this that he started becoming famous even among the Hindus. So up until the 10th century, people, including the Hindus of that time, did not even know his name, except for Shankaracharya himself and his followers. So it was after the 10th century, after Vachaspati Mishra wrote his Bhamati Tika, that he started becoming popular. It was after this that various other Hindus started accepting him. So from this fact itself, it can be seen that he did not go debating with and defeating all the Buddhists everywhere, from Rameshwar to the Himalayas, and because of which Buddha Dharma was wiped out. If that was the case, then he would have been famous in all of South Asia during his time itself.
दोस्रो, उहाँको भाष्यहरूमा, विशेष गरेर ब्रह्मसूत्र भाष्यमा,
Secondly, in his commentaries, particularly in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he has attempted to refute the Buddhist view of shunyata, or emptiness, the Chittamatra view, etc. I say that he attempted to refute because he had not actually understood the shunyata of Buddha Dharma. We can see from his refutation itself that he did not really understand it. He is refuting his own made-up version of shunyata. He has done a similar thing with Yogachar and Vaibhashik views as well. And there is also another issue regarding what is written in his biography, Shankar Digvijay, or Shankar's victory in all directions. A lot of Hindus assert that he was victorious everywhere he went, basing this claim on just the name of this text. But what kind of victory did he really accomplish? That is questionable. In the first canto of the Shankar Digvijay, in verses 93 to 95, there is a narrative about Kumaril Bhatta. He was a bit older than Shankaracharya, and Shankaracharya had a meeting with him before he died, where Kumaril Bhatta asked him to continue his work. And what kind of person was this Kumaril Bhatta? In the same verses, 93 to 95 of the first canto, it says that he took King Sudhanva of Kerala's army and killed all of the Buddhists in Kerala, whether they were children, adults, or the elderly, and destroyed all the Buddhist stupas, and destroyed the viharas or monasteries as well, or converted them into Hindu temples. Now in the first verse of the 15th canto of the same Shankar Digvijay, it says that
यही राजा सुधन्वको आर्मी लिएर उहाँ दिग्विजय गर्नु हिँड्यो।
Shankaracharya took the army of the same King Sudhanva and went off to acquire victories everywhere. And what kind of person was Sudhanva? This king gave an edict saying, "Kill all the Buddhists, however many there may be, from children to the elderly, everywhere, from Ketu, which is Rameshwaram, from Ketu to the Himalayas. I will reward those who kill, and I will kill those who will not kill." He was a king who gave such an edict. Thus, Shankaracharya took the army of such a king, and this is written in the first verse of the 15th canto of his Shankar Digvijay. Now the question arises as to why a person with such a sharp intellect, who is super intelligent and who defeats people in debate, would take the army of such a king along with him. Why did he take an army? It is mentioned in the Shankar Digvijay itself that Hindus who were not followers of Advaita Vedanta, such as the Kapalikas, were killed by this army. The soldiers were ordered to kill them. These other Hindus were told to either leave their particular tradition or die. So first of all, how would a person who does such atrocities also engage in debates? Secondly, if he could do such things to other sects of his own Hindu tradition, then what might he have done to Buddhists? What might he have done to Jains? Even though it is not written there, this can be inferred by anyone.
तेस्रो, यदि उहाँले रामेश्वरदेखि हिमालसम्म बौद्धहरूलाई शास्त्रार्थ गर्दै हिँड्दै जित्दै उनीहरूलाई बौद्ध बनाउँदै हिँडेको भए.
Thirdly, if he had defeated Buddhists in debate from Rameshwar to the Himalayas, he would have converted them to Hinduism, as this was the custom of that time. Buddhists, Hindus, and Jains would debate among themselves, and the loser would become the disciple of the winner. This custom was current at that time, and if this had happened, then it would be recorded somewhere that he defeated all the Buddhists in debate. It would have been pointless to just defeat unlearned Buddhists, so it should have been with scholars like Dharmakirti or Dignag and such others who were there during his time. There is a mention of Dharmakirti in Shankar Digvijay. He was a scholar and a logician, and his system of logic has influenced the Hindus even to this day in their Praman Shastra or theory of logic. But there should have been such names mentioned there as the ones he debated with, whether in Shankar Digvijay or in any of the 11 biographies of Shankaracharya, which were written in the later centuries. There should be mention of which Buddhists he had debated with. But we cannot find which well-known and well-regarded Buddhist scholars he is supposed to have defeated in debate written anywhere. Now, let us look at this also from the Buddhist side. In those times, Nalanda, Vikramashil, Udantapuri, Sompuri, Jagadalla, Vikramapur, and Vallabhi were Mahaviharas or great monastic centers of learning, where people came to study from China, Indonesia, Iraq, Iran, Greece, and from Alexandria in Egypt. There is no record anywhere that any of the scholars from these Mahaviharas had challenged Shankaracharya, which would have happened had he been traveling around defeating Buddhists. If there was someone who was going around defeating Buddhist scholars in debate, then these other scholars from these Mahaviharas would have challenged him. And the Buddhist tradition is, if someone can then prove his side in the debate, it is accepted. But we do not find any such records in any Buddhist texts, nor in Jain texts, that Shankaracharya was challenged to a debate and he won.
अब यो चाहिँ बौद्धहरूले जैनहरूले लुकाए कि भन्ने मान्ने हो भने शङ्कराचार्य अघि भर्खर भने कि 8औं शताब्दीका हो.
Now, even if we are to take the position that maybe the Buddhists and Jains just try to hide this, still we can see that although Shankaracharya was from the 8th century, the same Mahaviharas like Nalanda, Vikramashil, Udantapuri, Sompuri, Jagadalla, Vallabhi, Vikramapur, etc. were still carrying on and thriving till the 13th century. Therefore, which Buddhists did he defeat? This question becomes apparent. Who were the Buddhists? Who, because they lost to him, became Hindus? In the Newar tradition, there is a legend that talks in a vague way of a certain Shankaracharya who came here to Nepal and was victorious over Buddhists, and who converted various temples into Hindu temples, burnt Buddhist texts and such. But that is not Adi Shankar. It is not possible for Adi Shankar to have come up north here at that time. There is also a legend that he went to Tibet. But during the time of Shankaracharya, Buddha Dharma was still only about to reach Tibet and had not reached there yet. It was after Shankaracharya's time that it started to go there, and it was only 2 centuries later that it went there in a full-fledged way. Thus, when we examine these historical facts, first of all, looking at Shankaracharya's commentary itself, from the manner in which he has refuted Buddhist, Vaibhashik, Yogachar and Madhyamik views, it is clear that he did not understand the Vaibhashik, Yogachar and Madhyamik views. He did not understand any of these 3. Because what he has refuted is actually not Madhyamik, that is not Yogachar. But he has made his refutations based on the assumptions that what he was refuting was Yogachar and was Madhyamik.
दोस्रो, उहाँ स्वयं पनि हिन्दू मध्ये पनि 200 वर्षसम्म.
Secondly, he himself remained in obscurity, even among Hindus, for the next 200 years. He was not really known of. His name was not even known of except for by a few people. He was not famous like he is now, with his name Shankaracharya quite well known. It was in the 10th century that his follower, Vachaspati Mishra, who wrote many texts, also wrote a commentary on his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, which is also called Shariraka Bhashya. This commentary is called Bhamati Tika, and Vachaspati Mishra named it after his own wife. And it was only after this that Shankaracharya became popular in India. But if he indeed had traveled all over and debated and defeated other Hindus and defeated Buddhists and defeated Jains, then he should have been famous during his own time itself. But even in the 10th century, 200 years later, he still remained in obscurity. People did not know him. He was unknown. Thirdly, if he had gone around defeating Buddhists in debate and converting them to Hinduism, then who were the Buddhists he debated with? Which scholars? What were their names? No records of any of this are found in his biographies, Shankar Vijay, or in Shankar Digvijay, or anywhere else. And also in the third point, such records should have been found in Buddhist texts as well. Why did none of the illustrious Buddhist scholars of Nalanda, Vikramashil, Udantapuri, Sompuri, Jagadalla, Vallabhi challenge him? Such challenges would have been recorded and would also have been in the records which later reached Tibet and China as well. But we cannot find such records on any Buddhist having challenged Shankaracharya. And neither can we find any records of Shankaracharya having challenged famous scholars such as Chandrakirti, Dharmakirti, and others who were his contemporaries. So what was it? What was his Digvijay, or tour of conquests? It is clear that he went around killing, using the army he took along with him. Any person who has the capacity to deliberate even a little bit can think about whether it was necessary to travel around with a bouncer in order to engage in scholarly debates. That would be like taking troops of Taliban along, or just like taking ISIS fighters along. Is that needed? That is not debate. Why would such an army be needed? And on top of that, whose army was it? It was of King Sudanva, who gave orders to kill. His edict was to kill all Buddhists, no matter if they were children and no matter if they were elderly, and to destroy stupas and to burn down the viharas. These were his orders. And Shankaracharya took the soldiers of someone who gave such orders, going from Rameshwar to the Himalayas. And here the Himalayas refers to Kedarnath, etc. And he went to the south, to Sringeri, Rameshwar, etc. So what was it that he did? The stories say that he went around debating with various Hindus who were non-Vedantins, who were dualists. The stories state this clearly. But they do not mention any debates he had with Buddhists. Another point I will repeat is that if he had destroyed all the Buddhists and defeated all the scholars and converted them into Hindus,
कसरी नालन्दा चलिरहेको थियो, कसरी टिबेटनहरू चाइनिजहरू पढ्नु आइरहेको थियो,
then how would Nalanda still be operating when Bhaktiyar Khilji attacked the Magad area of India in the 13th century? How were the Tibetans and Chinese still coming there to study? Why would they go there if nothing was remaining because all the Buddhists had become Hindus? But they were still going there. Bhaktiyar Khilji, who was supported by Hindu kings, was mistaken in his understanding and thought that these large Mahaviharas, or great monastic centers of learning that were all over North India, such as Vallabhi in Gujarat and Sompur in Bangladesh, to be military camps. He was wrongly informed that the monks, who were all dressed the same, were actually armies, and he thought that if he could destroy them, then he could take over India, and this is why he attacked. And the biggest blow in their attack happened to Buddha Dharma. They did also kill Hindus and they killed Jains as well, but the manner in which Buddhists stayed together in such centers was not done a lot by the Jains. And Hindus had gurukuls, or small schools in the Guru's house, at each village, and not such large centers. There was one learning center called Takshashila, but here Buddhists, Hindus and Jains were all taught, and not just Hindus. Thus, when we look at how Buddhism deteriorated and disappeared, it was not because it was destroyed by Shankaracharya. Because the 13th century is, counting from the 8th century, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, that is 500 years later. Bhaktiyar Khilji has written about destroying Nalanda in his own diary.
र त्यसमा नालन्दाको उपाध्याय पाली भाषामा उपजया हैन.
At that time, the Upadhyaya or Dean or Upajaya in Pali and Khenpo in Tibetan was a Kashmiri Brahmin named Shakya Sri Bhadra. Now Brahmin here does not mean Hindu. His family lineage was Brahmin, but he was a Buddhist master. He had left Hindu dharma and the caste system. He escaped from Nalanda, and looking at it burning from afar, he wept. And weeping he said, "Now Buddha Dharma has gone from the Indian subcontinent."